cosmetology schools don't know anything about natural hair. The first thing I'm going to want to do is make you love your hair. Hair shape, your circle size, your density, porosity. Once you know those things, if you're using 5 products, they ain't working. Something ain't working. My hair will never grow as long as yours. Just like I will never grow as tall as you. Afro, it's kinky. I would ask people, what is 4C? What is that? You saying you have something, what is it? And no one could tell. This is fact. This is science. It's no made up stuff.
Wow, is that a true documentary? That's what it sounds like. Pamela Ferrell, owner of Cornrows and Company. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about that video.
So that was a video talking about circle hair care. I recently, I would say in the last maybe 10 years, I discovered that hair has a shape, and that shape determines what that hair can and cannot do. And this is what I used when I did a presentation before the United States Army for their regulations that they made it unauthorized to wear twists or locks. And so what I did was I didn't deal with race, I dealt with hair. And hair with, when you create policy that is for one hair shape, so the 2 shapes are circle and line. And there are more people in the world with circle hair than there are line. There's different size circle hair. So that determines what your hair looks like. So for example, and I use the point unit system. So you know what the size of a 12-point font is when you're doing your word processing versus 150-point size font. The difference is the 150-point size is bigger. That's poster size. So you see the curls, you see the waves. But if someone has a very small circle, you don't necessarily see it with your naked eye as easy, but it's there. And that's what determines, hair that stands up and hair that hangs down. And so this is what I use this, as well as when I am an expert witness with cases that are brought against hair braiders around the country who have salons, and the state regulatory agency attempts to shut them down to force them to go to cosmetology school. And so what I know is cosmetology school doesn't know this. It doesn't teach it. And the thing that I tell them is, we don't learn how to do natural hair from white people. We just don't. We learn it in our own communities. And, and generally you learn it very young from someone, in your family. I mean, for me, I learned it sitting out on the back porch from the older girls. We're out there braiding hair and, so culturally, this is how we learn, even in Africa. And what they're trying to do is force braiders or, people who want to do natural hair care to go to cosmetology school. So, and I've been doing this for years because it's a state law. And so you have to do all 50 states. You got to get the law changed in all 50 states. And we have done, I think it's all but 7 states now. But so for me, the point I wanted to make is that cosmetology knows nothing about our natural hair, and they don't care.
Yeah. For those who don't know, and I want to go back a little bit, Pamela, because we said you own Cornrows and Company. You established that in Washington, D.C. Nice facility. 40 years ago?
In I actually started Cornrows Company in 1978.
1978.
18 years old. So I started it out of my apartment.
And so what was your path into natural hair?
I think most people think that I became a hairstylist, as most hairstylists who desire to do hair. They want to do hair. That's not why I got involved in hair. When I was 18 years old, I was a college student, and I was fired from my job because of my braided hairstyle. I was working at G Street Remnant Shop, while I was in college because I
Boy,
was
do I remember that.
yeah. So I was a fashion designer, and that was like the best, fabric store in the DMV area.
Yeah.
So I went in one day, and the boss told me that if I wanted to continue working there, I would have to take my hair out. And I mean, I was hurt. I mean, one, I knew it was wrong. And two, there was no way I was going to go home and take my braided style out. That took me six plus hours to do, that I was going to take it out and go back in there and face that man. So I made a decision that day that I was never going to work for anyone else again. And I was going to braid so many heads that this would not happen to anyone. Now, of course, I was naive with that because hair discrimination will always be around. It'll be around just like where, people discriminate against us because of our skin color or voter rights suppression. It doesn't matter whether you have laws or anything. It will always be around because people are biased.
Yeah.
It's just human nature,
And one of the things that I think over the years, and I want you to talk about some of the, I don't know if you call them fads or movements, or I don't know what you would call them, but we went through a period where braided hair became very, very popular. And, but before that, it was relaxed hair. Braided hair went back to relaxed hair. Now we're doing a lot of locks, which I'm in that group. And then there's now the weaves and all kinds of things that people are wearing. But generally speaking, can you talk about what we're doing that may be detrimental, or what we could be doing that would be beneficial to us as we try to maintain our hair as long as we can?
Right. So when Cornrows and Company started back in, 1980, we opened our first storefront. A lot of young women were coming to us who had hair breakage because they were relaxing their hair. And so word got around, go get your hair braided and your hair's going to grow. And so we were known for a place of growing people's hair. And so once we grew out these full heads of natural hair, there were folk that said, I don't want extensions anymore. What can I do with my own hair? And so that's when we started working with the natural hair, doing things like twists and, of course, locks, and styling them. And so it was a much younger group. But now, today, what I am seeing is not necessarily the hair breakage from chemicals and what people are doing to their hair. I'm seeing systemic hair loss. And I'm seeing it in young people. So what is systemic hair loss? Systemic hair loss could be that you're low in vitamin D. If your vitamin D level is low, your hair is going to break off. It's not going to be bald, but it's going to break off in small areas where it'll be like almost stunted growth down to like a quarter of an inch. Also, if you're low in iron, your hair is going to feel dry, brittle, and it's going to break. If your thyroid is out of balance, you're going to see similar spots like the vitamin D. So those things are easy fixes because once we know that, if your vitamin D is low, then, we're going to make sure that based on your level, you're taking the right amount, that hair will grow back. But then there are other health problems that I'm seeing, and I've created what's called scalp mapping. So think of it like iridology or reflexology. There are areas on the scalp that correspond with different systems in the body. And for example, the top crown is the cardiovascular system. The back crown area here, that's your gut. The frontal area is your sex glands. So anything that, if you have fibroids, if you have really heavy cycles, if you give birth, when you go through menopause, hysterectomy, all of that's going to show up in that front area. As well as the very back area is the liver and the gallbladder. And so if we know this, when we start feeling our scalp is sensitive in a particular area, then that's giving us a warning that we need support in that area. Before, then when we become totally depleted of, these minerals and vitamins and imbalances, The body knows you can live without hair. So the body's always going to take care of the vital organs. If it doesn't have enough, to take care of the vital organs and the hair is not getting it. And
Interesting.
we don't want the body making that decision, right? So if we know, and that's what I've been doing for the last, well, actually the last 30 years, it's just really working with educating folk how to use their hair to monitor your health status.
We also talked about before the show, which was really interesting to me, about, like you said, you're seeing hair loss in younger people.
Yes.
And you talk a little bit about, those parents who think they may be doing the right thing, but are beginning to process their children's hair at really, really young ages. What is that doing to, potential, what potential harm may that be causing?
Yes. So they have reported recently, I think it was last year, that hair relaxers are linked to breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer. Well, in my book, Where Beauty Touches Me, which was published in 1993, I reported that. And so, and my concern even back then was we are the only people that hair product manufacturers sell chemicals to our children, hair chemicals. You're not going to find hair chemicals. You don't find kitty, a perm would be for someone that has straight hair, and you use the chemical to, you rod the hair, you put the chemical on, and it creates curls and waves. So that's what, the white people would typically do is a perm. We do a relaxer. And so you don't see any kitty perms. You say, in our community, we think a perm is a relaxer. So, it can be confusing. But relaxers is what's used to straighten the hair. And we are the only people, if you look on the shelves in the beauty supply, in pharmacies, even grocery stores, you're going to see kitty perms. And, if Black folk really want to be concerned about something, that's what we need to be concerned about. We need to get those products off the shelves. It should be illegal to put chemicals in a child's hair. And so if we know that it's causing cancer in adults, what is it doing to children? We're going
over the long term. I can see that being a real big problem for our children. And we, back in the day, just plaits used to work.
It did.
Or braiding the hair just worked, right?
I mean, when I was coming up, you couldn't get a relaxer in your hair till you were 16.
Yeah.
And when I did it when I was young, I did it only maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
People are doing it every 4 weeks. It's crazy, and I look at now, there's all these movements for hair, for Black hair, hair discrimination, this, that, the Crown Act. I always say to people, follow the money, because the Crown Act sponsor is Dove, and Unilever is the one, they sell these kitty perms. So how can you, on one hand, you want to protect, us from hair discrimination, but you're selling things to us that is carcinogenic for our children? And, we've been fighting so many battles. We've been fighting the hair discrimination cases. We've been simultaneously, we've been fighting the state laws that have been going around shutting down these braiding salons. And it got so bad at one point that they were arresting hair braiders. They would go in and handcuff, strip search a braider, but for me, if we really want to move the bar, we need to get these chemicals off of the shelves, not only for our children. If we know something's causing cancer, why is it still on the shelves? Why is it still available?
Right. Well, they still sell cigarettes. What can I say? It's a consumer market, and people want the product, and it's left up to them. Let me ask you another question, though, before we go, because we find a lot of women who because of hair loss, are now adding hair. I don't know what those processes are, but I know there are several processes, I think, to do that. Is there any warning sign you would give to those women, or is that sort of a safe approach to give to styling?
Yes. So I work with women who have hair loss. And as you know, because I am a hairstylist, I know how to make custom hair pieces. I've been doing that for years,
Okay.
making custom hair pieces. I have clients that come in who have locks, sister locks, that have hair loss in the top crown. I'm able to cut the hair, their hair, and make a piece that covers that hair loss. So in that case, I think of it as a prosthetic. If you have hair loss, then there are safe ways to cover it so that you look good and you feel good.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't recommend gluing. I don't recommend it. Some people are doing hair pieces and wigs and things like that, and they're gluing it. I have concerns with that on your scalp long term. But absolutely. I mean, I know that someone who's experiencing hair loss, they want to feel and look beautiful. And the reason I started doing this years ago, I started making wigs. I don't know if you remember Mr. Ray's. Remember Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Ray's, those commercials? And I just kept seeing these women with these awful looking straight weaves. And I said, because you got to remember, before I started Cornrows and Company, I was a fashion designer. I made clothes.
Yes.
So I knew how to sew. I could make wig. I said, oh, I could do this. I can sew and use hair that matches our hair, as opposed to putting, this straight hair on. So that's really how I got involved in it, because I wanted to be able to offer women who had hair loss with the hair that they want. If you want locks, if you want twists, if you want an afro, that would be available.
So Pam, we're running out of time, but I think this conversation is really great. And I know that Cornrows and Company is not the place that we used to go to, but you're still offering services there. So if you would just share with the audience briefly what services are available and how to reach out to you, that would be great.
So we still have our hair care products, and these are hair care products that we make. My conditioners you can use on your hair, your face, your skin. Also, as I mentioned, the hair loss services. So we do consultations, hair and health consultations. And also we do custom hair pieces. We don't do it as much, but it is available, particularly for women that are experiencing hair loss. So those are the things that we work on now. And right now I'm finishing up my first digital book. This will be a book about circle hair care. And this book will teach you how to, identify what kind of hair you have. You need to know your hair profile. Then how to select products, basic things such as shampooing and prepping the hair for styling. And then I believe every woman should know how to do at least 2 styles on her own hair. And so this book will have video in it and audio. I'm really excited. It's my first time doing a digital book.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Great news. That's great. That's going to be on the top of everybody's must read book list. So I'm so glad that you announced that and shared that with us. I want to thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing all this great information, to opening up our eyes, particularly as it relates to the hair care of our children. And, for keeping the doors open there at Cornrows and helping women to feel good about themselves. So thank you so much for being with us.
And thank you for the Informer.
Thank you.
Informer has covered us years ago. And thank you. Thank you.
Well, we'll be back. You've given us another story. So we're going to follow up on that with you really soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome.
All righty.